All right, everybody, we are back. It is 2025. This is Creativity is the Cure. I am your host, Malcolm Moore, and today I have my nephew, Collin Stahlkrantz. How you doing, Collin?
I'm all right, Malcolm. How are you doing?
I'm great. I am actually broadcasting from my studio in Palmdale, California. Where are you coming to us from?
I am coming from Helsingborg in Sweden.
I was lucky enough to go visit you there for your wedding. What a beautiful place.
Yes, although it's not so beautiful right now. It's pretty dark and wet and gross.
Sounds about right for Europe, though, right?
Or at least this part, yeah.
Yeah. So for our listeners, why don't you tell everybody, what do you do for a living?
So I work for a company called CanMan, and so to keep it as relatively short as possible, we help other companies that want to put products in cans, so whether that's breweries or people making energy drinks or whatever, and so we help them in whatever way we can, whether that's with a mobile canning machine that I operate where we take it directly to them and can on site, or we also have services to package the product into cans at our own site, and then we also will sell empty cans to people that have their own facilities.
Wow. How did you end up doing this type of work? Because if I remember correctly, you went to college and you studied anthropology? That
is correct. And how
does one go from point A to point B?
Well, it's a bit of a twisting, curving path, but I moved back to Sweden to where we are living now with my now wife, and I was working at a tap room, a restaurant that is owned by a local brewery. And when my 6-month contract there ran out, I asked the owner if he needed help at his brewery, and he said I could help with their canning line. And a few weeks later, I saw that CanMan was hiring, and I emailed them and said, hey, I've seen the machine before. And they were like, great, you're totally qualified. So.
CanMan is so cool. There must be T-shirts and mugs, right?
There are indeed. I'll see if I can snag one for you.
You hook me up, yeah. CanMan. Yeah. I just like to say it. That's pretty cool. You must wake up in the morning and be like, CanMan.
I am the CanMan.
All right. So as you know, this podcast is called Creativity is the Cure. And what we talk about is how people use the creative part of their brain to do all kinds of things in life. Now, I happen to know that you are a great musician, guitar player, and singer. So when you are performing, you might do a little improvisation, right? You might make up something off the top of your head. What is your first memory of being creative? When is the first time you remember discovering that part of yourself that you could just do something stream of consciousness, whether it's drawing or, I don't know, acting in a play or something like that? What's your earliest memory of being creative?
Before I started playing music, I remember I really liked, first of all, drawing, something that I kind of lost touch with over the years. But I remember I've always loved telling stories, writing stories. I remember we had a babysitter when I was little, and I would tell her stories and she would write them down. I think we still have some of my first published works at my mom's place.
You know, I want to see those.
I'll see if my mom can dig them out somewhere.
Okay. So you were dictating stories. You already had a secretary. How old were you at this point?
Oh, God, I must have been 3 or 4 or something.
You're like, take down these notes and read them back to me.
You can definitely see, that was the foundation of my later creativity down the line.
Do you remember any of the titles of these stories or books?
I don't remember the
subject
title,
matter,
but there was one that it was about some hunters, and the names of the hunters were my name and then my brother's and my dad's name. So we were hunters, and they lived in the forest in a cabin, and they hunted bad animals. And when they were done,
wait, did you say bad animals?
Yes, because you don't want to kill good animals, And then after hunting the bad animals, we would give them a proper burial. So
you guys truly are Vikings in every sense of the word.
Exactly. Yes.
How did you get into playing the guitar and singing?
Well, like most singer guitar players. I thought that it would get me girls. So I think
a young strolling minstrel.
Exactly. I think I was in 6th or 7th grade, and that time in life when you start to notice girls. And that summer at camp, I took some guitar lessons and just got totally sucked into it. And I would bring the guitar back to the cabin with me at the end of the day and practice. And I got home at the end of the summer and told my mom I wanted my own guitar. And you were kind of the broker in my first guitar purchase.
And I worked at Guitar Center. And I can't remember, what did you get? Was it an acoustic guitar, ukulele?
My first one was a Squire Strat.
Not bad place to start. Yes. And you obviously got an amp with it.
Yes, it came with the whole kit. So you got like the amp and all the cables you need and a whammy bar and all these little accessories.
Every strolling minstrel has a whammy bar.
Exactly.
And what do you prefer, acoustic or electric? Like if you were to sit down and sing for somebody or just play for yourself, what would you gravitate toward?
Probably acoustic. Generally, I like the sound better with acoustic, and it's, less parts that you need to keep track of and move around.
Right. Yeah. Very cool.
But, I unfortunately don't play as much music as I used to, but it's always something that I tell myself I need to get back into. And
here's some incentive. How about a jingle for Can Man? I mean, the song is already pretty. Jingle. It will write itself.
It's not a bad idea.
That is your assignment before I talk to you next time.
Perfect.
Are your parents creative? Was your dad creative? Is your mom creative? Is there any part of your life where you sit back and think, this part of myself, maybe I got that from my dad, maybe I got that from my mom?
So my mom is a writer by trade, and I think that's where I got my storytelling skills. My dad, I think if you ask my mom, she would have a different perspective of his creativity, at least in his younger years. I don't know if I ever got to see his creative side, but I know that he, played piano when he was really young. And then with his job, I'm sure there had to be some kind of creativity with, when he would travel to some foreign financial institution that he was trying to make deals with. And so he had to have creative ways of making those deals and,
I know that I do remember he was very insightfully creative, because every time we would get together, we'd talk about the Grateful Dead. He loved the band, and also Hunter Thompson. He and I would trade Hunter Thompson books and laugh and talk about all the crazy stories in there.
Right. Well, I definitely got my music taste from my dad.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you were growing up, what were your parents listening to that inspired you? What kind of music did they play for you?
Grateful Dead, Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Great vocals there.
That kind of era, like sort of 70s, 80s rock music mostly. But it was the kind of thing that you can like either have on in the background and it's very chill, or you can like listen more intently, and it has great lyrics and great technical music. They
both had very eclectic tastes, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but some of my best memories when I was really little, your mom, who was older than me, would come home from concerts and wake me up. She'd come to my bedroom and be like, I saw the coolest band tonight. They're called Charlie Daniels. Or I saw Supertramp or Genesis. And you would tell me about all these really cool bands. And I really have to give a lot to my older brother and sister for turning me on to really cool music, as you said, from the 70s and 80s.
Right. Well, I remember my mom telling me that at some point I think she said you were really into Kiss. And
I'm still really into Kiss. Come on.
Right. But at some point she said, Malcolm, no, Kiss isn't cool anymore. You have to listen to Genesis. And you listened to Genesis, and it was like a mind-blowing experience for you.
Yes, that is true. She played me the album Trick of the Tail, which is still one of the best albums I've ever heard in my life. It was funny. I loved Kiss when I was a little kid, obviously, because they were fun and they wore makeup. And come on, who's not going to love a band where one guy spits blood and fire, right? I actually didn't get to see them live until 1999. My buddy Andy took me to a concert, and it was pretty cool. I saw the original lineup and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah, no, they both turned me on a lot of my favorite stuff and had great musical taste. So for you, music-wise, who inspires you? Who do you listen to? And they blow your mind because they're so creative, and you're thinking to yourself, I would never think of that. Man, how did they come up with that? Who are some of your favorites?
I mean, I love a good jam band. So like Grateful Dead, Fish. I think my favorite concert I've ever been to was Fish concert at SPAC.
Wow, when was that?
Let's see, must have been like 2010 or something. I just love the way, especially at their live concerts, where like there's so much interaction with the audience, and they're kind of like feeding off the audience's energy. I remember there was one point someone had passed out thousands and thousands of glow sticks throughout the whole crowd. And they were playing some song, I can't remember, but like they would build and build and build the music. And then somehow, without anyone saying anything, everyone in the crowd threw the glow sticks up in the air at the same time. And then, with this like big climax, and then the music would go down again, and then it would build and build again. They did that probably like 5 or 6 times. It was just very surreal experience.
So improvisation within music is a big deal for you. You really like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Especially, when these sorts of bands that might play the same song, but it's totally different, different times when you hear it.
Yeah, not everybody is a fan of that, but I like that. I remember the first time I witnessed that, I was really young. I went to see Sting, I think in Buffalo, New York, and I had all his albums. I loved everything. I loved the Police. And he came out and he did, I can't remember what song it was, but it was a completely different arrangement. And I love when they start a song and you're like, what is this? And then the melody comes in and you're like, oh, I know this song, but they're interpreting it in a different way. Do you like it when bands do that?
Yes. I mean, it just, first of all, shows, how skilled they are in terms of being able to take one thing and make it into basically infinite versions. Spectators side of it, it's, you get it's like getting a whole new song, basically.
Yeah, when I grew up, my teenage years were in the 80s, and at that point, music became very regimented. And as a drummer, a studio drummer, you were expected to play the same pattern over and over. When you played live, you got to play it a certain way. But I started as a jazz drummer, and I really like and have gone back to every time I play something, I'm going to play it differently. And I appreciate that music. Keeping that in mind, improvising, how did you get good at improvising? Was it learning scales, copying other people's solos? What helped you get to the point where you could think of something and then execute it the same way that you thought of it?
When it comes to the instruments that I've played, whether it's guitar or violin or what have you, I was never very good at improvising. I think I would get in my head too much. But when I sing, I'll mostly just kind of, you like hear something in your head that's like, that's where the melody wants to go, or that's where there's a lot of famous musicians in the past that weren't traditionally trained, right? Being able to like read music or anything like that, but they can just kind of hear where the music is going and kind of follow it that way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Being a music teacher, I get to turn my students on to, not only do I want to know what they're listening to, but I'll turn them on to different styles of music. And when I teach about, goth music or punk music, those were interesting genres because these people didn't go to music school. They didn't learn their scales. They didn't know how to play their instruments in a traditional way. But what they did is they just got their instruments and started developing their own way to play them. Right. And without being regimented into this traditional way of, learning scales and modes and chords and all that stuff, you had all these bands coming out, anything from Black Flag to the Talking Heads or Blondie, where people started goth music, The Cure and Bauhaus. They started playing instruments in ways that we could never imagined. So exactly. I don't think there's only one way to get better at, like I said, thinking of something and executing it the way that you hoped it would go. It's just like being a painter, right? A lot of times younger painters or artists will copy the masters. They'll try to do a Michelangelo drawing or Salvador Dali painting or something like that. So I think it's interesting how people get better at their craft, right?
Yeah. Happy little accidents along the way.
Exactly.
To paraphrase Bob Ross.
The one and only Bob Ross. Yeah, he's awesome. Do you think that creativity could be implemented in curing people or helping people with mental health struggles like depression or anxiety.
Yeah, I think it definitely can, whether, you're using creativity as an outlet to either like work through, issues that you've got going on or escape from reality for a short period. I've seen things about how music is incredibly helpful with like dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yes.
So I think it has all sorts of applications in that area. For myself, at least, I use creativity as like a sort of an escape. I play a lot of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, for the uninitiated.
I think there's a big resurgence, partly because of Stranger Things, but go on.
Right. First of all, when I'm playing with my friends, it's a little bit of an escape. But then I'm the dungeon master in the game that we play. And so when I'm at work and, I'm just kind of staring at a machine for 8 hours straight, usually I'm in my head, kind of designing the story of what's going to happen next. And that's my primary creative outlet at the moment.
I think that's really cool. Now, I remember, because I am slightly older than you, I remember when Dungeons & Dragons first came out, in the 80s. Mm-hmm. God, I think maybe middle school. I remember that we were so excited about it when it came out that we would go to lunch, eat as fast as we can, and then all gather at a table and start making up all these stories. And it's so cool that, in this age of technology and singularity and the way that the world is changing so fast, I think because of that, because our people are living in all their bubbles and on machines, it's so great to detach and just go into this other world that has nothing to do with a blinking screen.
Yeah, no, and it's the only downside of the group that I play with now is that we have to play over Discord since we live in different parts of Sweden.
Yes.
But yeah, there's nothing better than, in-person Dungeons and Dragons, having your friends around, you got some snacks, you're making up a story together. Because it really, yes, it is a game, but it's more like collective storytelling. And while one person is kind of guiding the story, the others are contributing and, changing the story as it goes. And so I might spend 4 hours planning what's going to happen in the story, but then the other players will decide to do something I wasn't expecting, and suddenly the entire story has changed. So,
yeah, I haven't really thought about that before. It's a very collaborative, improvisational activity. Now, I know some of my friends, when they play, they put like movie soundtracks on or instrumental music in the back to make it more exciting. Have you ever done anything like that?
It's something that we've tried a few times. I'm not technically savvy enough to, have it really
on Discord,
contribute that much to the ambiance. But yes, that's one of those things where if you can make it work and, not like all the time, if you use it like for really important moments, then it can be really great. But yeah,
you need to hire a musical arranger, almost like a DJ that would be in charge.
Exactly. And they do have apps now that are basically like soundboards where you can be like, all right, I want to have some like sinister music coming on now. And it'll like use like AI to.
Oh, that's cool. And do they have like sound effects? If you say somebody's creeping up, do they sometimes have?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. You can have like ambient sound, like, ambient tavern sounds going on, and
that is really cool.
All kinds of stuff going on in the tabletop RPG space.
And your friends that play, what parts of the world do they live in?
They're all in Sweden.
Okay.
But other than my wife plays with us also. So other than her, the other guys are in Uppsala, which is where we all met.
Now, I know that you guys are fans of cats, as I am too.
Yes.
Cats are a big part of our whole extended family's life. Do they play a part? Are they ever present when you're playing the games, or are they characters in the games that happen to be feline?
Well, the cats are usually around, either, sleeping next to us or, begging for attention while we're in the middle of something. I ran one campaign maybe a year or so ago where it was all very kind of ocean based. And so they were always on ships. And I decided that in this world, it's incredibly good luck to it's good luck to have a cat on your ship. But if you don't have a cat on your ship, then you're going to run into trouble.
With no knowledge or any information on this, I would immediately agree.
Right.
Have you ever used creativity to solve a serious challenge in your life?
Yeah, I mean, nothing too specific, I guess, but, with work, there's always the imminent threat of angry customers or things like that. And you got to use a certain amount of creativity to kind of assay their doubts and their worries for them, and let them know that, like, all right, well, there are ways for us to solve this issue. Actually, here's a more specific one. A lot of the time, when we're putting beer in cans, for example,
right.
There's something that's just not working about it. Either it's like foaming too much, foaming too little, something along those lines. And so you got to kind of approach it with problem solving mindset to say, all right, well, let's figure out, like, all right, what's causing the issue and how can we find a solution that isn't going to take, several days, because usually we have like a few hours to get this done.
Right.
Sometimes it's sort of MacGyver solution, and you gotta just kind of go with the flow.
Well, take me through a day, a life in the day of Can Man. So you wake up and go to work. What is it like? Because this seems very foreign to me. I can't imagine a scenario.
So usually the day before we go to a brewery, we'll load up. We have one of those like kind of U-Haul trucks that we have the machine in. So we'll pack that up with all of the cans and everything, drive to the brewery, unpack everything, plug everything in, set it up, and then we hook it up to the tank that has the beer in it.
Right.
And if everything goes according to plan, you press start, everything goes nicely, and it's a really boring day. If things go wrong, it's not boring, but it can be a bit stressful because, then you're running around, making adjustments all over the place, and, oh, that thing just came loose. I need to go over and tighten that screw. But usually we do that for anywhere from, 4 to 8 hours from when we press start on the machine. Then we hopefully get all of the beer in cans, clean the machine, pack it back in the truck, and then start it all over the next day.
So what is it exactly your company does, though? So if I was in Sweden and I wanted to make a drink that was like half Guinness, half espresso, and I could come up with a drink by myself, would I hire you to come put it in cans and then help do the labels? And
so if you had your own facility where you have your Guinness espresso in a big tank, then we come to you, we set up, and we do everything right there on site. We put it in the cans, we put labels on it, and then by the time we leave, you've got a pallet of espresso Guinness.
And is it pretty common that a company that makes a drink does not have the ability to put the drinks in containers?
Yes. Well, so maybe I want to say 5-6 years ago, a lot of companies started transitioning towards cans for a variety of reasons. Sorry, there's some cats running around.
Very big, heavy cats.
Yes. And so at the time, a lot of breweries had bottle machines, but now bottles are starting to go out of style.
Right.
For various reasons. Cans are more environmentally friendly. They're a bit cheaper to produce. They don't have the same kind of cheap product stigma that they used to.
Right.
But also, if a brewery is just starting up, they might not have the space or the money to invest in their own machine. So that's where we come in.
That's really cool. I had no idea that people did this. I think that's pretty fascinating. So you're saying if I came up with a Guinness/espresso drink, I could also say to you, I want on the outside of the can a drawing of a cat dungeon master. You could be like, yeah, we can make that happen.
Well, we don't do the labels, but if you can, so our customers will usually, buy their labels from a third party. But if they have the labels on site, then we can slap them on a can for you.
That is awesome. What is the most creative cat that you have ever met in your life that you've had the privilege of getting to know? And when I say creative, I mean unpredictable. Whoa.
Did you just hear that?
Was that for real?
That was for real.
Man,
that was
I struck a nerve. I think you better
Spyro.
answer this. Yeah. It's me.
Well, Spyro is definitely the most opinionated of our cats. But I think our second to youngest, Pippin, is probably the most creative in terms of Pippin, like the Hobbit in
of course,
Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
He's the most creative in finding unique ways to cause mischief.
One example, please.
Our apartment is it's a bit eclectic. It's, we've got all sorts of little knickknacks and stuff, and we try to keep them in places where cats won't, knock them down and break them. And Pippin is the master of finding his way into these spaces that we thought were cat proof and saying, hey, look at me, I'm here. And what would happen if this were to be slightly nudged in that direction?
I'm still shocked that Spyro made himself known. I think that is the first sentient feline creature I've had on my podcast.
Well, we are honored to be such a groundbreaking moment in your show.
One of my favorite authors is a Buddhist monk named Thich Nhat Hanh. He once said, "It is very important that we relearn the art of resting and relaxing. Not only does it help prevent the onset of many illnesses that develop through chronic tension and worrying, it allows us to clear our minds, focus, and find creative solutions to problems." What do you think about that?
Well, I'll start off by saying that I agree with it. Most kind of obstacles and issues that I run into in life can generally kind of be assisted by kind of stepping back and, getting a broader view of things. Take a minute to clear your head and, look at it a different way.
Yeah. Changing your perspective is not only creative, but probably one of the biggest ways to solve an issue, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've definitely had instances where, I'm trying to fix a problem and, just definition of insanity, just keep trying the same thing over and over again and it's not working. And then you step away, have some coffee and go back at it and say, oh, what if I did this instead? And a lot of the time that'll do the trick.
Yeah, sometimes just a little mental break. I think you're right. I'm curious. I've only been to Europe a little bit. I have not lived there like you for extended periods of time. What is your experience, the difference of the vibe of living in Europe compared to America? Do you find that life slows down a little bit, or is it just different there? What do you like about the general feeling of living over there in comparison to the United States?
Usually my go-to answer is free healthcare. But I mean, it's amazing, like how much that one thing like kind of frees your mind and like takes that huge level of stress off of you. I don't need to worry about, am I getting health insurance from my job? If I lose my job, am I not going to have health insurance anymore? So I'm kind of free to have a job where I put beer in cans.
Yeah.
But
that sounds like a very significant component.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that Sweden is the most laid back place, but it's definitely very open-minded. I mean, you and I both grew up in relatively liberal bubbles.
Right. Upstate New York. Yeah.
But Sweden is, at least compared to the majority of the US, like so much more left leaning.
Yeah.
That like.
And you feel comfortable being yourself, right?
Oh, yeah. And I think almost anyone would feel comfortable being here and just being whoever they are. It's, obviously, like anywhere in the world, there are bigots and people that will look down on you for whatever reason. But I suppose that's just human nature. Unfortunately.
But, I think there's a big difference between what you read on social media and in the news than when you talk to people. I mean, we just moved from Hollywood, bustling LA, which can be frenetic and crazy and pretty intense, out to the desert in Palmdale. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit concerned because I also feel like I am, like you, a little bit of an eccentric creature who likes to be who I am and unique. But I've found people out here are just as welcoming. And I don't know, when you talk face to face with someone, I think they're a lot more accepting than when they're hiding behind whatever it is online. You know, it gives me a lot of hope as we go into this new year when there's a lot of stuff to worry about. I don't know, day to day when I go around and talk to people, I know it can drive my wife nuts. My wife, Christine, when I just go up and talk to random strangers. But I like people, and I'm finding what I'm getting back is pretty positive, no matter what walk of life or what their beliefs are, their political leanings, you know.
Yeah.
I feel pretty hopeful despite some things we see in the news.
Yeah. Well, Sweden is not the place to go up and talk to strangers, unfortunately, but I know what you mean. Yeah, being able to talk to someone face to face, and, you know, as long as you both go into it with relatively open mind, then, you know, you might not agree on everything, but you can reach some kind of common ground and at least understand where each other are coming from.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this always happens when I'm at the grocery store or any kind of business I go into. As long as you just ask somebody, hey, how's your day going? And they realize you actually care, then they'll open up and you'll find out we have a lot more similarities than differences, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Collin Stahlkrantz, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you.
Would you agree in the near future to possibly get together again and talk about some more creative attributes of your fascinating can man life?
Absolutely. Just name the time.
All right. Have a good day, Collin, and Happy New Year.
Yep, you too.